好嗱，今日咧就想同大家即係分享一本科幻小說短篇嘅故事嚟嘅。咁書名叫 Six Months, 3 Days, 5 Others。咁咧作者叫 Charlie Jane Anders。咁我上網 check 過，其實佢都係寫開一啲科幻小說嘅，咁仲攞咗獎添嘅之前啲小說。咁嗰個獎叫 Nebula Award 啊。係科幻小說界嘅大獎嚟㗎啦，咁啊即係攞咗 Best Novel 嘅咁呢本書咧就我喺誠品度揾到嘅咁佢係2017年出㗎啦咁佢嗰個特別之處咧，我覺得幾得意嘅。佢係第一佢係科幻小說嚟嘅，咁但係亦都帶少少科幻加奇幻，甚或乎加少少哲學嘅即係題目落去。咁同埋佢成本書咧係即係由5個小說短篇小說組成嘅。咁其實好易入口嘅，即係每一個短篇小說咧都有佢自己一個好明確嘅主題嘅一個可能係科幻主題啦，或者哲學嘅主題咁裏邊亦都好突出一啲叫做人物嗰個嘅性格或者內心嘅深處咁樣。嗱，我哋睇一睇佢即係背面先 ，OK？ 咁佢就即係5個小說嘅簡介嚟嘅。咁第一個小說。The terrible truth about why humans were created and why we'll never discover aliens。佢係講Fermi Paradox。Fermi Paradox 意思就係話我哋既然發現呢個世界係咁多即係行星或者咁多同地球相似嘅行星，咁點解我哋都仲未發現外星人嘅咧？咁樣咁係環繞住呢一個 topic 去講一個關於外星人同埋地球人嘅故仔，咁但係主要就係從外星人嘅角度去出發嘅咁樣。好，咁第二個咧就係 A Tale of Three Wishes After the End of the World。咁呢個我會覺得係更加吸引添，吸引到我，因為佢係講一個世界末日之後，咁主角咧就發現咗一盞神燈。咁捽2下，跟住就發現咗原來有個 genie 有個精靈喺裏邊，可以俾3個願望佢。咁佢可以點樣運用咧？即係呢3個願望嚟拯救呢一個世界咧咁樣。咁我希望應該都長講咯好，跟住 a family reunion in which some of the attendees aren't human anymore, but they are still family。咁呢個就係好哲學意味好重啊，就係話喺未來嘅世界，其實我哋其實而家都係㗎啦，人類不斷可以更換自己身體嘅即係 body parts 啊。咁更換到一個地步，就可能你已經唔係即係身體裏邊已經再冇人類存在㗎咯。OK， 咁但係你點樣面對你嘅family 咧？咁樣。好，跟住咧下一個就。You try to solve the problem with time travel, and now you have 2 problems。咁呢個就好典型嘅 time travel 嘅一個主題嚟嘅。咁 time travel 意思就係即係譬如好似 Back to Future 年代就係我哋永遠嗰個故事嘅中心思想就係我哋可唔可以透過返回我哋嘅以前，返回從前去即係叫做 fix 一啲。糾正我哋以前犯過嘅錯，從而去建立一個更好嘅未來咧咁樣。咁呢個小說呢一個簡介就已經話俾我哋聽，其實唔係咁得喎，因為如果你用 time travel 翻去一次去 solve 呢個 problem， 你只會製造2個 problems 喎咁樣，即係會有一啲嘅漣漪問題嘅漣漪會不斷係藉由你嘅 time travel 去不斷衍生咁樣。OK 嗱，我因為我睇到呢度嘅淨係咁，我後邊嗰啲唔講住。咁我咧就想講一講就係其中一個故事，就係講即係遇到呢個精靈，即係神燈，跟住點樣改變，即係用3個願望去改變呢個世界。OK， 睇下夠唔夠時間啦，盡量言簡意賅啦，咁樣。咁佢嗰個即係短篇小說呢一篇小說叫 As Good As New 咯。好。OK， 咁開始就講就 Marisol 係主角嚟嘅 ，got into an intense relationship with the people on the facts of life。咁係一套美劇嚟咯。咁to the point where Tutti and Mrs. Garrett became her imaginary best friends and she shared every lost thought with them。 OK， 咁啊，即係同佢傾心事啦。咁佢同阿 Tutti 咧講，佢得到一個嗰啲嘅 rash 啦，疹啊，係啦 ，from wearing the same bra every day。咁佢即係連續2年都戴同一個 bra 喎。OK，and she had a long talk with Mrs. Garrett about her regrets that she hadn't said the proper goodbye to her best friend Julie and her on again, off again boyfriend Rod before they died along with everybody else。好啦，咁即係其實已經好明確講咧，呢個世界已經玩完咗啦。咁佢得翻阿 Marisol 一個生存緊，咁佢同呢一個嘅 Mrs. Garrett 呢一個 imaginary friend 即係自己想像出嚟，就好似阿 Wilson 咁樣，Castaway 裏邊嘅 Wilson。OK， 咁去分享自己嘅心事啦。咁原來已經過咗2年添㗎啦，呢一個世界末日咁樣。OK， 嗱咁咧就開始咧。跟住就講啦 ，The Panic Room had pretty much every TV show ever made on its massive hard drive with multiple backup systems and a fail-proof generator, so there was nothing stopping Marisol from marathoning the fact of life for 16 hours a day, starting over again with season 1 when she got to the end of the bedraggled final season.She also watched Mad Men and West Wing. The media survey had tons of videos of live theatre, but Marisol didn't watch that because it made her feel guilty, not survivor's guilt, failed playwright guilt. OK， 嗱，呢度講咩咧？第2段咧其實就講佢響一個叫做 panic room， 即係意思嗰啲叫做生還嘅房間啦咁好多大嘅家庭都有嘅咁樣，咁就以防咧就可能有一啲突發嘅災難嘅時候，咁呢一房咧就可以提供呢一班即係入咗去房裏邊嘅人嘅生活所需。咁樣，咁而呢間房咧就咁啱咧有好多呢啲咁樣嘅美劇睇咁樣，咁就即係呢個女主角就係咁煲啦，佢都中意睇美劇嘅。OK， 咁佢其實講咗最後尾就係話佢有一種即係寫劇本嗰種嘅即係罪疚感啊，因為佢之後講到佢原來都係一個即係寫劇本嘅人嚟嘅。OK， 咁我哋繼續睇。好，咁The last proper conversation with a living human has been an argument with Julie about Marisol's decision to go to medical school instead of trying to write more plays。講到佢同Julie 即係佢 best friend 就即係傾一傾，喂應唔應該去入 medical school 做醫生咧，而定係去寫多啲劇本咧咁樣。咁Julie 就話咧fuck doctors man people are going to die。No matter what you do, theatre is important。即係話佢想去做即係寫劇本嘅因為醫生又即係全部日日都有㗎啦，日日都有人死㗎啦咁樣。OK， 好啦 ，Marisol had hung up on Julie and gone back to the pre-med school。pre-med school 咁繼續讀書啊，咁都係因為已經讀緊㗎啦，即係讀緊醫㗎啦咁樣。Staring at the exposed musculature and blood vessels as if they were costume designs for a skeleton theatre troupe。好，跟住就 The quakes 就開始講緊咩事啦，發生咩事啦。The quakes always happened at the worst moment。地震係啦，成日都響即係最差嘅時間發生。Just when Joe or Blair was about to reveal something heartfelt or serious, the whole panic room would shake.Throwing Marisol against the padded walls or ceiling over and over again, a reminder that the rest of the world was probably dead. At first, these quakes were constant. Then they happened a few times a day, then once a day, then a few times a week, then a few times a month. Marisol knew that once a month or two passed without the world going sideways, she would have to go out and investigate.即係話其實地震係好突如其來嘅，咁就困咗佢喺個 panic room 裏邊啦。咁就一開始就有可能震幾次係啦，跟住就即係1日2次或者幾次，跟住就1日1次，然之後幾日1次，即係會慢慢下降咁樣。好，跟住睇下邊。She would have to leave her friends at the Island school and venture into a bleak world. Sometimes Marisol thought she had a duty to stay in the panic room since she was personally keeping the human race alive, but then she thought, what if there was someone else living and they needed help? Marisol was pre-med. She might be able to do something. What if there was a man and Marisol could help them repopulate the species? 嗱，咁其實呢度咧幾得意嘅，佢講得係啦。咁即係 Marisol 自己心諗咧，就即係如果要出去嘅話咧，就都要好多嘢諗啊佢自己嚇。咁佢可能真係即係覺得自己都有個 duty， 有個即係義務或者一個責任去留喺個 panic room 喎嚇，因為佢係可能即係唯一一個human 係生存緊㗎啦。咁但係佢之後又諗啊，喂，如果即係有人喺出邊。原來都係生存緊，咁佢哋有需要咧咁樣咁因為 Marisol 讀緊醫啊嘛咁佢就可能真係都做啲嘢嘅喎，可以幫手。咁又或乎，喂，如果真係有個男人，Marisol 係女人嚟㗎嘛，咁可以幫佢生仔喎，而保存人類呢一個嘅即係物種喎，哇幾大愛！即係其實呢一句嘢反映到Marisol 嘅基本上係一個我諗幾思想幾單純係啦嘅一個人咁樣咯好啦，咁The panic room had nice blue leather walls and a carpeted floor that felt nice to walk on, and enough gourmet frozen dinners to last Marisol a few lifetimes. She only had a pair of shoes she'd brought in there with her, and it would seem weird to wear shoes after 2 barefoot years. The real world was in here in the panic room. Out there was nothing.But an after-image of a bad trip。出邊其實即係總括嚟講，即係佢 panic room 其實都好夠做㗎啦，好夠佢生存多幾年幾個 lifetime 咁樣咁出去係點咧？可能出去都係好危險嘅喎咁樣。好，咁Marisol was an award-winning playwright, but that hadn't saved her from the end of the world.She was taking pre-med classes and trying to get a scholarship to med school so she could give cancer screenings to poor women in her native towns. But that didn't save her either, nor did the fact that she believed in God every other day. 嗱，咁 Marisol 係一個真係原來都攞咗獎嘅即係劇作家嚟嘅噃，咁但係即係都救唔到佢即係向呢一個世界末日當前。咁佢都準備準備緊讀醫，咁諗住都真係做醫生，然之後去幫一啲 cancer 嘅病人女病人咁樣。OK， 咁係真係幾有愛心嘅，去到呢個位就即係已經突出咗嗰個嘅人物性格嗰個嘅特點啦。好 ，What actually saved Marisol from the end of the world was the fact that she took a job.Cleaning Burton Henstridt's mansion to help her through school. She'd happened to be scrubbing this fancy Japanese toilets when the quakes had started. Within easy reach of Burton's state of the panic room, she had found a hidden opening mechanism some weeks earlier while cleaning the porcelain cat figurines.Burton himself was in Bulgaria scouting a new location for a nano-fabrication facility and had died instantly. 好啦，講翻 Marisol 其實咧就響世界末日嗰陣時咧，就喺一間豪宅裏邊去清潔喎，因為佢都要揾錢去 support 佢自己讀書咁樣。咁啱咧，佢就喺呢個好靚嘅即係日本嘅廁所裏邊擦緊，係啦，咁就啱啱喺呢個 panic room 裏邊嘅。OK， 咁啱就地震。OK， 咁然之後佢就入咗去呢一個 panic room 嗰度住啦。咁而呢個豪宅主人咧就咁啱咧響保加利亞當堂係死咗㗎啦咁樣。Okay, when Marisol let herself think about all the people she could never talk to again, she got so choked up she wanted to punch someone in the eye until they were blinded for life. She experienced grief in the form of freakouts that left her unable to breathe or think. And then she popped in another fact of life. As she watched, she chewed her nails until she was in danger of gnawing off her fingertips. 咁 Marisol 自己都即係好驚嘅，其實世界末日佢驚即係冇人同佢講嘢啦。咁但係當佢驚嘅時候咧，佢基本上就即係唯一嘅方法就睇美劇。咁其實都好似而家時候好多港女咁樣嘅。咁睇劇基本上係一個 time travel 嘅一個好好嘅方法。咁睇一睇基本上一日就冇咗㗎啦咁樣。咁佢睇咗2年嘅喺 panic room 裏邊。咁但係睇嘅時間咧，佢喺度咬手指喎。其實即係代表佢都其實唔會話唔知外邊呢個世界發生嘅乜嘢事，只不過即係睇美劇其實係幫佢係可能係進入一個虛擬嘅世界啦嚇，令佢忘卻出邊發生緊啲乜嘢事咁樣咯嚇。好啦，the door to the panic room wouldn't actually open when Marisol finally decided it had been a couple months since the last quake and it was time to go the hell out there. She had to kick the door a few dozen times until she dislodged enough of the debris, blocking it to stagger out into the wasteland. The cold slapped her in the face and extremities. 咁呢個講就佢最終係都係決定出去啊，咁就確保唔會再有地震啦咁佢就出去咯咁樣。咁一出到去咧，基本上咧呢個世界咧就係點咧？Extra bitter after 2 years at room temperature. 幾凍嘅。Burton's house was gone. The panic room was just a cube, half buried in the ruins, covered in some yellowy insulation that looked like it would burn your fingers. 個 panic room 其實得個豪宅已經冇咗㗎啦，得返個 panic room 喺度咁樣。Everything out there was white, like snow or paper, except powdery and brittle, ashen. She had a Geiger counter from the panic room which read 0. She couldn't figure out what the hell had happened to the world for a long time until it hit her. It was fungus. 即係話其實外面世界咧已經係一片空白，咁好多灰塵咁樣嚇。咁係乜嘢事咧？最後尾原來係有一啲菌啊。Fungus 菌 some kind of newly made highly corrosive fungus that had rushed over everything like a tidal wave and consumed every last bit of organic material then died. 咁呢啲菌其實係會侵蝕所有生物嘅有機生物，然之後死亡，可能連植物都冇啊應該。It had come in wave after wave with incredible violence until it had exhausted the last of its food supply and crushed everything to dust. She gleaned this from the consistency of the crud that had coated every bit of rubble, but also from the putrid, sweet and sour smell that she could not stop smelling. Once she noticed it. She kept imagining that she saw the white powder starting to move out of the corner of her eye, advancing toward her. But when she would turn around, there was nothing. 咁都係總括嚟講，都係講佢即係向出邊嘅世界，其實都係一片灰塵，乜都冇㗎啦咁樣啊。The fungus would have all died out when there was nothing left for it to feed on. 咁即係話嗰啲菌咧，菇菌啊，咁基本上就會死晒嘅。即係如果乜嘢食都冇嘅話，咁所以應該依家就安全嘅。好啦 ，Marisol said it out. There's no way it could still be active. She tried to pretend some other person, an expert or something, had said that, and thus it was authoritative. The fungus was dead. It couldn't hurt her now. Because if the fungus wasn't dead, then she was screwed, even if it didn't kill her. It would destroy the panic room and its contents. She hadn't been able to seal it properly behind her without locking herself out. Hello, Marisol kept yelling, out of practice at trying to protect her voice. Anybody there? Anybody? 有冇人喺度啊？因為佢出咗去啊嘛，想睇下有冇其他人喺度。 She couldn't even make sense of the landscape. It was just blinding white as far as she could see, with bits of blanched stonework jutting out. No way to discern streets or houses or cats or anything, because it had all been corroded and devoured. 咁出面嘅世界基本上認唔到㗎啦，咁啊一片空白，係啦，咁啊所有 landscape 都認唔到㗎啦，咁啲屋都冇晒㗎啦，咁啊車啊乜嘢都冇㗎啦，咁因為其實 fungus 都食晒所有嘢㗎啦，咁樣樣。She was about to go back to the panic room and hope it was still untouched, so she could eat another frozen lamb Vindaloo and watch season 3 of Mad Men, and then she spotted something, a dot of colour, a long way off in the pale ruins. 咁當佢想翻去 panic room 之際咧，佢就即係發現有啲嘢喎咁樣樣。咁佢翻去 panic room 其實都係想繼續頹廢嘅啫。咁因為外邊都乜嘢都冇啊，咁啊唯有翻去繼續煲劇啦，或者食啲嘢啦咁樣樣。咁啊發現咗有一個 dot of colour 喎，有啲顏色喎，喺出面閃下咁樣樣。Okay. The bottle was a deep oaky green. 咁發現一個樽，咁呢個樽咧係綠色嘅，咁 light smoked glass with a cork in it. 咁有個 cork 嘅，有個樽塞係啦。And it was about 20 yards away, just sitting in one of the endless piles of white debris. Somehow it had avoided being consumed or rusted or broken in the endless waves of fungal devastation. It looked as though someone had just put it down a second ago. In fact, Marisol's first response was to yell, "Hello!" even louder than before. 咁呢個樽好奇怪喎，就即係佢冇穿冇爛喎，經歷過咁多波嘅 fungus 嘅攻擊嘅摧毀之後。咁Marisol 以為都真係有人喎，咁啊再嗌大聲啲 hello 啦。好 ，When there was no answer, he picked up the bottle. In her hands, it felt bumpy, like an embossed label had been worn away, and there didn't seem to be any liquid inside. She couldn't see its contents, if there were any. She removed the cork. 咁好得意喎，個 bottle 咧本身就即係都好有少少重量添嘅喎，係啦。咁但係就裏邊冇嘢嘅喎，空嘅喎嚇。但係就睇唔到裏面有啲乜嘢。OK， 咁佢開一開個樽蓋啦。A whoosh broke the dead silence. A sparkly mist streamed out of the bottle's narrow mouth, glittering like the cheap glitter at the arts and crafts table at summer camp when Marisol was a little girl, misty like a smoke machine at the cheap nightclub, and it slowly resolved into a shape in front of her, a man, a little taller than she was and much bigger. 好啦，咁好奇幻啊！呢個畫面就即係等於我哋細個睇阿拉丁神燈嗰個畫面，就係有啲即係個 bottle 又有啲聲啦飄一聲，跟住就有個人影出咗嚟啦，有啲閃閃靈靈嘅效果添，咁樣樣。咁佢形容得幾搞笑，就係即係好似喺個夜場裏邊有一啲，即係個畫面就好似夜場裏邊有啲跳舞女郎咁樣樣跟住有啲smoke 有啲煙嘅，即係嗰啲叫做落啲乾冰嗰啲 machine 咁樣。Marisol was so startled and grateful at no longer being alone that she almost didn't pause to wonder how this man had appeared out of nowhere after she opened the bottle. A bottle that had survived when everything else was crushed. Then she did start to wonder, but the only explanation seemed too ludicrous to believe. 咁 Marisol 好驚啦咁就即係佢都唔識諗啦，因為點解呢個男人會響即係突然間憑空出現咧咁樣即係呢一個 bottle， 即係呢個樽就幾得意喎，係啦，即係所有嘢都消失，但係佢都仲可以存在喺呢個世界。OK， 咁最後尾佢諗啦，即係其實唯一個解釋真係都好難以置信，其實。可能真係阿拉丁神燈喎，喺佢嘅角度嚟諗。Hello and congratulations. the man said in a pleasant tone. He looked Jewish and wore a cheap suit in a style that reminded Marisol somewhat of the Mad Men episodes she'd just been watching. His dark hair fell onto his high forehead in lank strands, and he had a heavy beard shadow. Thank you for opening my bottle. I'm pleased to offer you 3 wishes. Then he looked around and his already dour expression worsened. Oh fuck, he said, not again. 咁幾得意嘅，又係寫得幾嚴。其實佢嗰個用文係幾我哋年輕人嘅language 嚟嘅即係呢本小説嗰個寫法。好咁呢個男人出現，咁咧係好似猶太人咁但係就着緊啲好 cheap 嘅西裝，咁咧就令到Marisol 想起一套美劇《Mad Men》裏邊睇緊嘅男士，全部都係咁樣嘅。冇記錯 ，Mad Men 應該係廣告狂人咯講啲賣廣告嘅人咁樣，即係講啲 marketing 嘅即係 drama 咁樣。His dark hair fell onto his forehead。係啦，咁佢啲頭髮咧就即係去到流到佢長額頭嗰度嘅咁就瘦削嘅本身咁留鬚。OK， 咁開場白第一句就話：我會俾3個願望你，跟住佢望一望周圍世界，屌！又係咁，即係話其實世界末日已經發生過㗎啦，喺佢嘅意識裏邊，即係喺呢一個阿拉丁係啦。好啦，跟住 Wait, Marisol said, You're a genie 你係精靈。I hate that term. The man said, I prefer wish facilitator 我唔中意俾人叫 genie， 我中意叫願望促進者。And for your information, I used to be just a regular person. I was the theatre critic at the New York Times for 6 months in 1958, which I still think defines me much more than my current engagement does. But I tried to bamboozle the wrong individual, so I got stuck in a bottle and forced to grant wishes to anyone who opens it. 幾搞笑嘅介紹自己就係啦，佢話佢自己就即係都做過呢一個嘅編劇評論嘅。係啦，咁喺 New York Times 添做咗6個月，咁喺1958年咁我幾中意佢話佢幾中意係用呢一個描述嚟描述自己做緊嘅嘢係啦。咁但係咧佢咧好耐之前咧就bamboozle 咧應該係類似啲負面嘅 word， 等我查下先。bamboozle 係即係欺騙bamboozle the wrong individual 係啦，咁即係搞呃錯人咁最後尾俾人就塞咗入去個 bottle， 就變咗精靈啦，要俾願望人。好咁，但 Marisol 咧最緊張嘅咁當然唔係3個願望啦，而係喂你係一個 theatre critic。 Marisol said，I'm a playwright. I won a contest and had a play produced off-Broadway. Well, actually, I'm a pre-med student and I clean houses for money, but in my off hours, I'm a playwright, I guess. 佢話佢自己都係一個劇作家嚟嘅喎，贏過獎嘅喎，咁但係我而家都係讀緊醫嘅，咁我就即係做清潔賺錢嘅，係啦，咁但係我空餘嘅時間我都係寫緊劇本嘅。Oh, the man said, well...if you want me to tell you your plays are very good, then that will count as one of your 3 wishes. And honestly, I don't think you're going to benefit from good publicity very much in the current climate. 咁好搞笑嘅 Jenny 就話咧，佢即係都得嘅。如果你想我讚你寫劇本好好嘅話，係啦咁。但係咧，如果我讚你咧，就要計一個願望㗎啦。咁但係向呢個時勢咧，我讚你又冇乜用喎，冇乜宣傳作用喎，咁樣。He gestured around at the bleak white landscape around them. My name was Richard Wolff, by the way. 咁呢個 Jenny 叫 Richard Wolff。Marisol, she said, Marisol Guzman, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. He extended his hand, but didn't actually try to shake hers. She wondered.If she would go right through him, she was standing in a world of stinky chalk, talking to a self-loathing genie. After 2 years alone in the box, that didn't even seemed even weird. Really. 好啦，咁啊，大家即係交個朋友啦，咁樣咁，因為佢都2年啦揾咗，咁啊出嚟見到個怪嘅精靈，其實都唔出奇嘅，咁樣。So this was it, right? She could fix everything. She could make a wish, and everything would be back the way it was. She could talk to Julie again and apologize for hanging up on her. She could see Rod and maybe figure out what they were to each other. Jesus had to say the word, I wish. She started to speak, and then something Richard Wolff had said a moment earlier registered in her brain. 嗱，咁其實開始諗啲實際嘢啦。OK， 咁佢見到呢個精靈咁都好啊。反正而家世界末日，咁佢可以願望，即係佢個願望就乜嘢都去翻平常，係啦。咁佢可以同佢 best friend Julie 傾偈啦。咁亦都可以即係同阿 Rod 即係前男友係啦。咁即係同佢講翻，喂即係繼續 date 咁樣咯嚇。OK， 咁但係佢一絲剎那咧就諗翻阿 Richard Wolff 呢個精靈一出嘅時候。佢講過嘅嘢喎 ，not again 佢講嗰句叫 fuck oh fuck not again。跟住 wait a minute she said what did you mean not again? Oh that Richard Wolff swapped it around his head with big hands like he was trying to swat non-existent insects. I couldn't say. I mean I can answer my question you want, but that counts as one of your wishes. There were rules.咁咧就呢個 Richard Wolff 咧知道都怒喊啊，咁想掩飾，咁就講啦，喂，我可以講嘢，我唔可以講啊，咁但係我可以即係答你問任何問題嘅，咁但係呢個都會即係變成你嘅願望啦，嚇。Oh, Marisol said, well, I don't want to waste a wish on the question, not when I can figure this out on my own. You said not again the moment you saw all this.So this isn't the first time this has happened. Your bottle can probably survive anything, right? Because it's magic or something. 咁 Marisol 梗係冇咁蠢啦，咁就真係話喂，我都唔會嘥呢一個願望啦。咁我都覺得自己可以揾到個答案喎。咁樣你話 not again 即係話代表呢一個世界末日其實都唔係第一次發生㗎咯喎。咁樣因為你其實呢個 bottle 係可以 survive anything， 可以生存嘅。冇穿冇爛嘅，咁所以你一定經歷過唔同嘅世界末日㗎咯喎，咁樣。The dark green bottle still had a heft to it. Even after she released its contents, she threw it at a nearby rock a few times, not a scratch. 真係試下喎，掟一掟個樽出街先，睇下有冇爛先，咁真係冇穿冇爛嘅，咁樣。So she said, the world ends. Your bottle doesn't get damaged.If even one person survives, they found your bottle. And the first time they wish for is for the world not to have ended. 好啦，咁 Marisol 就估咧就即係呢個樽咧就唔會即係冇穿冇爛啦，咁就一定會有人執到佢嘅，然之後就許願。咁佢估前人啦，之前執到呢個即係樽嘅人，可能都會係估即係呢一個世界末日就唔好完喎，咁都好正路嘅。OK 咁Richard Wolff 咧呢個精靈就話啦，咁shrugged it， 即係鬆鬆膊。But he also sort of nodded at the same time, like he was confirming her hunch. 咁Richard Wolff 咧就冇明確表示，但係佢都已經即係耍手擰頭咁滯啦。咁但係就都額頭喎，即係好似有少少默認佢嘅即係直覺。His feet were see-through, she noticed. He was wearing wing-tipped shoes that looked scuffed to the point of being scarred. The first time was in 1962. He said the Cuban Missile Crisis. They called it afterwards. This is not counting as one of my wishes because I didn't ask a question. 好啦，咁精靈就講咧，第一次咧其實發生喺1962年嗰個古巴導彈事件喎，危機喎，導彈危機喎，係啦。咁跟住 Marisol 即刻話：喂嗱，咪住先，呢個就唔係我第一個願望嚟嘅嚇，講明先啦，因為我冇問過問題嘅。OK。Fine, fine. Richard Wolff rolled his eyes. I grew tired of listening to your harangue. 好啦，咁Richard Wolff 就話：喂， 好攰啊，聽你成日喺度辯駁。OK， 咁啊 ，When I was reviewing for the Times, I always tore into plays that had too many endless speeches。當我做Times 嘅時候，其實我都睇好多唔同劇本嘅，係啦。Your plays don't have lots of monologues。咁你自己講嘅嘢都冇好多獨腳戲嘅喎，冇好多獨白嘅喎。Today, fucking Brett made everybody think 3-page speeches were clever. Fucking Brett。嗱，咁呢度開始係講少少真係Brett 我都唔識嘅，但係肯定係嗰啲當代嘅即係啲編劇嘅即係大人物啦。咁佢發明咗一個3頁嘅speeches 係啦。咁即係佢覺得3頁係好嘅，咁但係呢個精靈就唔覺得係啦。跟住 I didn't go in for too many monologues. Marisol said so. Someone finds a bottle. They wish for the apocalypse not to have happened. And then they probably make a second wish to try and make sure it doesn't happen again, except here we are. So it obviously didn't work for the last time. 係啦 Marisol 都唔係蠢嘅，咁冇俾佢捏住喎，係講翻呢個樽嗱，即係有人執到隻樽啦，佢哋其實都係希望呢一個世界末日唔好發生啦。咁啊，佢哋都好可能講第二個願望喎，就係話喂。呢一個世界末日唔好再發生啦，係啦，即係第一個願望就係許願，就係話呢一個世界末日就唔好存在，翻去平時。第二個願望就係以後嘅世界末日都唔好發生。OK， 咁但係又唔係喎，如果真係咁許嘅話，咁而家呢一個世界末日都唔會發生㗎，係咪？好啦 ，I couldn't possibly comment， 我不能夠討論。俾評語 Richard Wolff said, although I should say everyone gets the wrong idea about people in my line of work, meaning wish facilitators, not theatre critics. People had the wrong idea when I was a theatre critic too. They thought it was my job to promote the theatre, to put buns in seats, even for terrible plays. That was not my job at all. 好啦，咁佢解釋咧就話咧，即係我唔可以 comment。咁但係咧，我講咧就即係其實所有人咧就對於我呢一個人啊，呢一個願望促進者嘅工作內容咧，又真係又好有謬誤啊，係啦，唔理解嚇。咁即係就正如我做 theatre critic 嘅時候咧，其實啲人咧就以為我係要 promote 個即係劇嘅喎，個劇場嘅喎，係啦，就好似即係斟茶遞水嘅工作咁樣，係啦。咁 even 一啲爛片。爛嘅劇目咧，佢都要做 promotion。咁但係呢一個就完全唔係我嘅工作啦。即係話許嘅願咧，其實就未必真係心常所願喎，可能即係都有啲怪事會發生嘅喎，咁樣。好 ，The theatre has been an endangered species for a long time, Marisol said, not without sympathy. She looked around the pasty, white, yeast-scented deathscape, a world of wonder bread.I mean, I get why people want criticism that is essentially cheerleading, even if that doesn't push anybody to do the best work. 好啦，咁Marisol 就講咧 ，the theatre 係啦，咁其實即係劇啦嚟講啦，話劇或者任何劇目或者劇場咧，其實本身已經係瀕臨絕種㗎啦，即係好耐㗎啦，咁樣。咁咧佢又即係望向呢個世界，就即係可能真係感慨咁講咯。咁佢話 I mean I get why people want criticism that is essentially cheerleading， 即係佢明白啲人點解要覺得批評其實係需要，即係好需要即係好似做到打氣一樣，係啦，即係講報喜不報憂啦，所謂嚇。其實最主要原因就係因為劇場基本上係唔受歡迎咯，又或者慢慢沒落咯，咁所以啲人就覺得你寫評語嘅時候就一定要寫好嘢嚇，因為你要幫手去做，即係令到劇場呢一樣嘢得以延續落去咁樣樣。Well, if you think of theatre as some sort of delicate flower that needs to be kept protected in some sort of hothouse at this point, Wolff was clearly reprising arguments she had over and over again when she was alive. Then you're going to end up with something that only the faithful few will appreciate. and you'll end up worsening the very marginalization that you're seeking to prevent. OK， 咁嗱，如果你覺得開始討論即係劇呢一樣嘢 ，Well， 如果你覺得劇場係一種即係精緻嘅花，係啦，呢度 kept protected， 咁即係好似保存咁樣，好好保存，好似一種花咁你要保存喎，係啦，喺即係一啲溫室裏面保存。咁咧就Wolf 咧就即係其實講過呢一個話題，即係當佢在生嘅時候講過呢個話題好多次㗎啦。咁樣，咁你就等於即係當佢溫室嘅花嚟培養嘅話，你就等於即係最後尾你會出咗一啲嘢，咁something that the only faithful feel， 即係有信心嘅人先至會識得欣賞 ，and you end up worsening the very marginalization that you're seeking to prevent。即係話你呢個好深啊！佢講就係話一啲有信心嘅人。最後尾就係一啲你如果越係保存佢嘅時候，唔俾佢有一個競爭底下嘅成長啦。即係我講得淺白啲，唔俾佢有競爭底下嘅成長咧，其實最後尾咧就得好少人會欣賞，淨係覺得佢得嘅人先至會欣賞咯。Faithful feel。OK， and you'll end up worsening the very marginalization that you're seeking to prevent。咁你更加惡化咗呢一個嘅邊緣化，你想保護、你想防止嘅邊緣化嘅問題，咁樣即係一啲好 extreme 嘅問題，你會忽略咗，就係因為你太過保護主義，最後尾導致一啲好極端嘅邊緣化嘅問題，或者我哋好差嘅 situation 啦，當佢 OK。好啦 ，Marisol was being very careful to avoid asking anything resembling a question because she was probably going to need all three of her wishes. I would guess that the job of a theatre critic is misunderstood in sort of the opposite way than the job of a genie. She said everybody is afraid a theatre critic will be too brutally honest, but the genie…好啦，咁Marisol 咧係好小心啊，咁都唔再問佢啲咩問題㗎啦，咁因為佢就即係覺得佢應該3個願望都需要用晒嘅，係啦，咁跟住同佢講話，喂，我估其實咧你做呢一個嘅即係劇場嘅critic 係啦，批評或者評述員係啦，咁其實都係好似俾世人去錯估咗喎咁樣。好似世人錯估你成做一個精靈一樣喎，咁樣。咁其實所有人都好驚咧，啲批評咧，即係會係有太過無情地誠實啊。OK， 咁跟住落去就 Everybody thinks I'm out to swindle them. Richard Wolf threw his hands in the air thinking of all the terrors he had endured.When in fact it's always the client who can't express a wish in clear and straightforward terms. They always leave out crucial information. I do my best. It's like stage direction without any stage left or stage right. I interpret as best I can. 佢話其實咧，即係所有人都會覺得我係所有嘢都做足喎。咁但係咧，其實咧個問題在於咧嗰個 client 即係許願嘅人，佢基本上都經常地係唔可以許一個正常或者好有表達能力或者好straightforward 好直接嘅即係 term 即係條件係啦。咁其實佢哋咧許願嘅時候咧，成日都冇做一啲好安全嘅，即係冇好重點嘅資訊，即係遺留一啲好重要嘅資訊喺度喎。咁我作為精靈，我盡晒力嘅啦，咁樣咪跟住佢嘅方向做咯。咁之後發生咩唔關我事嘅。Of course you do, Marisol said. This was all starting to cripple her out, and her gratitude at having another person to talk to.Marisol 咧就話：喂，你梗係㗎，咁就嚇死佢喎，開始嚇佢啦，係啦。Was getting driven out by her discomfort and standing in the bleached ruins of the world, keep the size. about theatre criticism. She picked up the bottle from where it lay undamaged of the evening rock and found the cork. 好啦，咁啊即係見佢好似講唔埋嘴咁樣，咁就開始收翻個cork，收翻個酒塞。跟住 Wait a minute, Richard said you don't want to。跟住he was sucked back inside the bottle before she finished putting the cork back in。咁當佢塞完個酒樽咧，有咁個精靈咧，Richard Wolff 咧就收翻入佢個樽嗰度。She reopened the bottle once. She went back inside the panic room with the door sealed from the inside. 咁佢翻去 panic room 先再開翻個酒樽喎，咁樣。So nothing or nobody could get in. She watched 3 episodes of The Fact of Life, trying to get her equilibrium back before she microwaved some sukiyaki and let Richard Wolff out again. He started to spiral about how he had to give her 3 wishes over again, and then stopped and looked around. 好啦，佢翻去即係個 panic room，去翻 comfort zone 煲多幾套劇，跟住再食埋個 sukiyaki， 之後先至再俾阿 Richard Wolff 出翻嚟咁樣。好啦，咁佢再講過啦，我可以俾3個願望你咁樣獨白，係啦，然之後再望一望 ，OK， 嚇。He sat and saw the floated an inch above the sofa. Nice thick, real calfskin on the sofa. Is this like a bunker? 佢話即係話呢個好嘢嚟喎，好地方牛皮梳化，小牛皮梳化。OK， 咁呢個係咪地堡嚟㗎？咁 Marisol 又串翻佢轉頭 I can't answer any of your questions. Marisol said, "Oh, that counts as a wish you owe me." 如果唔係我答你咧就當咗係願望啦。Okay, don't be like that. Richard Wolff ruffled his 2-tone leopards. I'm just trying not to create any loopholes. Because once there are loopholes, it brings everybody grief in the end. Trust me, you wouldn't want the rules to be messy here. 好啦，即係話 Richard 就安撫佢啦，咁就即係我同你傾偈，其實都想你知道，喂，即係你許願其實盡量都唔好有漏洞喎，如果唔係咧，世界末日又再出現㗎啦，咁樣樣。He riffled through the media collection until he found a copy of Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, which he made a big show of studying until Marisol finally loaded it for him. 咁Richard Wolff 就睇下佢嘅書櫃，睇下佢媒體櫃啊 ，media collection 咁佢揾到一個叫 The Cat on the Hot Tin Roof 咁咧就都係一個 show 嚟嘅。This is better than I remembered, Richard Wolff said an hour later. Good to know, Marisol said. I never got around to watch that one. I met Tennessee Williams. 咁開始講呢套劇啊 ，Richard 都睇咗，咁開始講呢套劇，咁話佢喂 I met Tennessee Williams, you know. Richard said he wasn't nearly as drunk as you might have thought. 咁話佢見喎，應該係男主角啦 ，Tennessee Williams 佢原來都即係冇咁醉喎，冇因為成日飲酒嘅。Okay, so here's what I figure. You do your level best to implement the wishes that people give you to the letter. Marisol said if someone says they want to make sure that a nuclear war never happens again, you do your best to make a nuclear war impossible, and then maybe that change leads to some other catastrophe, and then the next person tries to make some wishes that prevent that thing from happening again and on and on. 好啦，咁Marisol 就講啦，你即係作為一個精靈咁，盡量都去實行啲人許嘅願嘅。OK， 咁如果有個人咧就話佢想核戰爭就永不再發生，咁你都係好盡力去阻止呢一個核戰爭嘅發生嘅喎。咁但係咧and then maybe that change， 咁但係呢一個許願，呢一個改變咧，就令到更加多嘅災難發生咗啦。咁然之後下個許願者咧，又係咁樣循環咁樣去許個願，去阻止呢一個即係災難發生咁樣咁永不止盡。好咁This is actually the longest conversation I've had since I became a wish facilitator. Richard crossed his legs, ankle over thigh. Usually it's just one lunar 3 wishes. And I'm back in the bottle, so tell me about your prize-winning play. If you want, I mean, it's up to you. 咁Richard 就講話，其實呢個我同你嘅對話都已經係最長㗎啦，咁多年以嚟咁樣。咁Richard 好輕鬆咁樣啦即係翹晒腳咁講。咁即係通常我都係去3個月好快手，跟住又翻返入樽㗎啦。好，不如咁講下你嘅得獎嘅劇作啊，如果你想嘅話，即係傾下偈啦，個精靈同呢個主角。Okay, Marisol told Richard about her play, which seemed like something an acquaintance of hers had written many lifetimes ago. It was one act, she said, about a man who's trying to break up with his girlfriend, but every time he's about to dump her, she does something to remind him why he used to love her, so he hires a male prostitute to seduce her instead, so she'll cheat on him and he can have a reason to break up with her. Marisol 就同Richard 講就，喂，其實佢嘅 play 就好似即係一個好朋友咁樣嘅，係啦，就咁寫咗好耐。咁開始講咧就話其實係一個 act 嚟嘅，一場嘅啫咁咧就講一個男主角，咁咧就想同女朋友分手喎。咁但係每次咧佢想飛佢嘅時候咧，咁呢個女朋友咧都會做啲嘢出嚟咧，就話等佢覺得原來佢都仲係好愛佢喎咁樣咁所以咧最後尾咧佢請咗一個 male prostitute， 即係男妓請隻鴨翻嚟去勾引佢，係啦。咁所以咧就當佢受勾引嘅時候咧，咁佢就可以有個藉口。咁咧就同佢分手。OK， 咁Richard 咧就Richard was giving her a blank expression， 冇表情俾佢，即係 O 咗嘴 ，as though he couldn't trust himself to show a reaction. It's a comedy， 喜劇嚟嘅。Marisol 講。Okay, sorry. Richard said it sounds awful. He hires a male prostitute to sleep with his girlfriend. It sounds I just don't know what to say. Well, you were a theatre critic in the 1950s, right? I guess it was different era. 咁Marisol 覺得就喂你即係50年代嘅人嚟喎，可能即係你即係呢個唔同時空喎，大家嘅道德標準都可能唔同咁樣，所以你冇嘢講。I don't think that's the problem, Richard said. It just sounds sort of misanthropic, or actually woman-hating, with a slight veneer of irony. I don't know, maybe that's the sort of thing everybody is into these days, or was into before the world ended yet again. This is something like 5th or 6th time the world has ended. I'm losing count, to be quite honest. 我唔覺得呢個係一個問題嚟嘅年代，咁即係但係聽落去咧，好似好唔似人做嘅嘢，係啦，又或者好即係對女性係一種控訴。好係啦，一種控訴，又或者係一種諷刺咁樣。我唔知啊，咁可能即係而家時下流行啦，咁樣係啦。咁即係意思世界末日之前啦嘅時下流行啦。咁但係呢次嘅世界末日都可能第5、第6次啦，我已經即係開始冇計到啦，問心嗰句咁樣。好啦 ，Marisol was put out that this fossil was casting its person on her play, her contest-winning play, in fact. But the longer she kept him talking, the more clues he dropped without costing her any wishes. So she bit her lip. Marisol 咧，其實咧就即係都想同佢講多啲佢嘅劇目嘅嘢嘅，咁但係咧。佢Richard 越講越多嘅時候咧，佢又知道呢一個世界究竟發生緊啲咩事喎，但係佢又唔需要即係許願喎咁樣，咁所以咧Marisol 就由佢繼續講啦。咁Marisol 就講啦 ，So there were half a dozen apocalypses. Marisol said, and I guess each of them was caused by people trying to prevent the last one from happening again by making wishes. So that white stuff out there, some kind of engineered corrosive fungus, I thought, but maybe it was created to prevent some kind of climate-related disaster. It does seem awfully reflective of sunlight. 好，咁佢就講咧，就係話，喂，其實即係已經有6次世界末日出現咗。咁我估每次都係啲人咧就想即係阻止上一個世界末日爆發，而引致今次嘅世界末日喎，咁樣樣，因為許願嘅問題。好啦，咁今次咧就係一啲生物科技嘅嘢，咁啊令到啲菌就有侵蝕能力嘅菌就出現呢個世界，係啦，咁咧就可能係用嚟阻止呢一個嘅 climate-related disaster 喎。即係今次呢一個菌出現，其實係用嚟阻止因為世界即係變暖嘅問題而出現喎。因為佢話呢啲咁嘅 fungus 係可以反映出即係sunlight，即係講嘅話 global warming。咁個地球變暖，咁點樣可以降溫咧？原來啲 fungus 咯，即係啲菌白色會反光嘅時候，等到啲反光就可以反射啲即係熱能出去外太空，咁變咗地球嘅溫度咧一定會下降啦，咁樣樣。咁 Marisol 就話哈 Marisol said, and you claim you're just doing the most straightforward job possible. You're addicted to irony. You sat through too many Brecht plays.Even though you claim to hate him, you probably loved Beckett as well. 咁 Marisol 咧講估中咗佢啦。你話你自己啊 Richard 你自己就係即係直覺做事，原來你係即係一個災難冚一個災難喎。實際上 all right thinking people love Beckett。好多左派右派人士都中意呢個 Beckett。said Richard.So you had some small success as a playwright, and you're studying to be a doctor, or you were before this unfortunate business. Why not stick with the theatre? 點解你即係講又開始串翻佢啦？有少少成就喺即係嗰個嘅劇作嘅事業，咁點解又即係想做醫生咧？點解唔做即係唔堅持做劇作家咧 ？Is that a question? Marisol said.Richard started to backpedal, but then she answered him anyway. Marisol 即係首先笠個高帽先，呢個係咪問題嚟㗎？係咪要許願㗎？咁樣。咁 Marisol 就都答佢。I wanted to help people. Really help people. Live theatre reaches fewer and fewer people all the time, especially brand new plays by brand new plays, right?It's getting to be like poetry. Nobody reads poetry anymore. And meanwhile, poor people are dying of preventable cancers every day back home in towns. I couldn't fool myself that writing a play that 20 people saw would do so much good as screening 100 people for cervical cancer. 佢話啱啱嘅時候就講咧，其實咧我好想幫人嘅，咁咧就即係一個劇場嘅項目。係啦，一場話劇其實就可以即係接觸到越嚟越少嘅人㗎啦，咁樣樣。咁但係咧，如果你做醫生即係 playwright 就好似詩一樣啦。咁現代人其實好少人會睇詩㗎啦，已經。咁話劇都係一樣。咁與此同時咧，其實好多窮人每日都係死於呢個 cancer 㗎喎，喺 Taos 呢個地方。咁咧就我唔可以即係再 fool 自己啦，即係唔可以再呃自己寫一個 play 可以改變世界咁樣樣，係啦。咁cancer 或者做醫生去醫 cancer 會可能好啲對呢個世界。Richard paused and looked her over. You're a good person, he said. I almost never get picked up by anyone who's actually not a terrible human being. Richard 就講咧，其實話你真係一個好人嚟喎。以前啲許願者全部都係即係冇你咁好，全部都衰人嚟。簡單啲嚟講 ，It's all relative. My protagonist, who hires a male prostitute to seduce his girlfriend, consider himself a good person too. 咁呢啲其實阿 Marisol 講其實相對嘅啫。你好人話我好人，咁我個主角，我個劇目裏邊嘅主角，其實佢請一個即係男妓出嚟去勾引自己女朋友，都覺得自己係好人嚟㗎，係咪 ？Does it work? The male prostitute think. Does she sleep with him? 咁啊 Richard 問：喂，其實即係得唔得咧？最後尾個男妓有冇同個女主角瞓咧？跟住 Meryl 就問：Are you asking me a question？ 呢個係問題嚟㗎。阿 Wolf 咧 ，Richard Wolf 就 shrugged and rolled his eye in that operatic way he did, which he'd probably practiced in the mirror. I'll owe you an extra wish, sure. Why not? Does it work? 咁咧就阿 Richard Wolf 就話：喂，你答我啦，好想知，我俾多個願望你又點話啫？咁樣嚇，咁個男妓得唔得啊？係咪真係同女主角搞埋一齊啊？咁樣。Marisol had to search for her memory for a second. She had written that play in such a different frame of mind. No, the boyfriend keeps feeding the male prostitute lines to seduce his girlfriend via a Bluetooth earpiece. It's meant to be a postmodern Cyrano de Bergerac, and she figures it out and starts using the male prostitute to screw with her boyfriend. In the end, the boyfriend and the male prostitute get together because the boyfriend and the male prostitute have seduced each other while flirting with the girlfriend. 咁咧就好現代啊，其實佢講到，即係嗰個嗰個結局係咩咧？就係阿 Marisol 講個 boyfriend 咧 keep 住即係通過一個藍牙耳機咁啊對話，咁啊即係教佢講對白點樣勾引呢個女主角。OK， 咁咧咁最後尾咧就即係呢一個男主角咧個 boyfriend 咧就同呢一個男妓咧就搞埋一齊喎，係啦，即係原來呢個 boyfriend 係基嘅 ，OK， 咁呢個 male prostitute 即係呢個男妓咧最後尾都係基嘅咁樣，咁啊兩個搞埋一齊個結局。好啦，咁啊 Richard 咧就 cringed on top of the sofa with his face in his insubstantial hands. That's terrible, he said. I can't believe I gave you an extra wish just to find that out. 咁咧就Richard 就覺得俾人呃咗咁樣，好難喎呢個尾係啦，即係我唔相信我俾咗個願望你，竟然得到呢一個嘅